Perfect. All right, so this is our technical session number 14 on custom configurations. So these are the different configurations that you might be able to help or as always, we have our objectives. And Melinda, will you read our objectives for today?
Number 1, describe different custom configurations to meet common client needs. Number 2, describe the features and characteristics for different custom configured workstations. Number 3, given a scenario, select the appropriate component for a custom PC configuration to meet customer specifications or needs.
Awesome. Thank you, Melinda. I couldn't have read it better myself.
Thank you.
All right, Solomon, tell us about our key BSMs.
Yes, I'll just about stepping out right now. Yeah, behavior skill, communication, mindset, growth mindset.
Perfect. Thank you, Solomon. I just saw your message in the chat. You're good to step out for a second. So communication is key with all of our sessions, but specifically with building these custom configurations, because when a client is asking you for a specific type of machine, you're going to want to make sure that you're meeting that expectation. And so communication is super important. As always, it's important to have a growth mindset and be willing to think of new and improved ways to go about building these different machines. Right. So here are some specialized custom PCs. Susan, will you read this slide for me?
I was about to write it down. Okay. Specialized computing needs require specialized PCs to get the job done. IT professionals should know how to build a PC according to customers' needs. The 3 most common are workstation PCs, media workstations, or specialized consumer PCs.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. So in general, you're going to learn how to make a basic computer. You're going to know how to build it up. You're going to know you need a motherboard, CPU, RAM, cooling, storage. That's basically it. For all PCs, you're going to have some combination of those parts, and some you'll want to focus more heavily on for certain types of builds, and others you're not going to need as much of one of those components. So let's get into it. Thick client. Let's see. Who have I not heard? Venkata, would you mind reading this slide for us? Venkata, can you hear me?
I think she's stepped out.
Okay. Then let's do Vincent.
A client is a PC that has all the capabilities of a standard PC. It runs a modern operating system in general productivity application to accomplish the majority of tasks needed by office and home users. The key to a good thick client is sufficient core hardware to support the operating system in typical desktop applications such as office productivity and network applications.
Perfect. Thank you, Vincent. So this is your standard off-the-shelf PC that you're going to buy from Best Buy, Staples, Walmart, wherever. It's just going to have basic components, nothing super special. They might have a few higher end pieces in there, but overall, it's going to be good for you know, generic users, if they're just surfing the web, if, you know, watching Netflix, Facebook, YouTube, maybe some little minor game, but this is good for the average person. Then we have our thin client. DW, would you mind reading this slide?
A thin client is a system designed to outsource much of its work. These PCs have just enough hardware to power to run the selected OS and a few basic applications. Thin clients usually rely on resources from powerful servers, so they may not have hard drives or store any data. They serve a single purpose. Systems like point of sales machines. The only requirement of thin clients are network connectivity and access to servers of those networks.
Perfect. Thank you, DW. So these are very weak machines. They have just what they have, an operating system, and they're able to run a few basic applications. You're going to use these for like point of sale machines, and you're going to be making use of cloud services more so than straight off of your hardware. All right, virtualization workstations. Julian, will you read this one for me?
Yes, virtualization workstation. Virtualization enables to run more than one operating system at the same time in a single computer. A virtualization PC is called host, while the VMs are called guests. All hardware resources from the PC are shared between the multiple virtual PCs and the host PC. It saves hardware costs when needing to have access to different operating systems for many reasons, including testing software on different platforms and working in a support environment.
Perfect. Thank you, Julian. So that's basically what a virtualization workstation is. You're going to want to have a nice CPU and lots of RAM, so that way you're able to allocate sufficient space to your virtual machines. And we'll continue with the requirements. Jessica, would you mind reading this slide for me?
No. For good performance on a virtualization environment, a lot of RAM is required and a fast CPU with multiple cores is recommended. RAM is the most important requirement since each virtualization workstation needs enough memory to run the native OS, the guest OS, and any other applications running in either OS. If there is not enough memory, the virtualization, what is the M again? Machine will not start. A powerful 64-bit CPU with many cores also helps virtual machines to run smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to make sure we have a 64-bit CPU, so that way it can have multiple cores and it can run multiple virtual machines at once. And for each VM that you're running, you need to have enough RAM to support that individual virtual machine. So you're splitting up your hardware in between each virtual machine that's running. So having a lot of RAM is very, very important, especially if you're running more than 2 or 3 virtual machines. I'm going to move forward because I promise you the slide that I've got at the end is going to be what you want out of this entire session. All right, graphics workstation. Joseph, would you mind reading this slide for me?
Graphic designers mainly fall into computer aid design, CAD, and computer aid manufacturing, CAM categories. All of them requires workstations that enable running consuming resources applications like Adobe, Photoshop, or AutoCAD.
Perfect, thank you. So these are going to be running 3D imaging software. So a lot of trying to think the best word. Engineering companies, when they're building different machines or designing different products, you know, you could design cars and through AutoCAD programs, and it's just a lot of 3D rendering, and so it's very graphic intensive. So we are going to need these key components. Maftuna, would you mind reading this slide? Tell us about our components. I believe you are muted. Maftuna, I think you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted.
Yep, there we go.
Okay. Graphic PC requirements. Solid state hard drives. Maximum RAM. Check the parameters of each graphic software. High-end video cards with its own memory, processor, and display adapters. High quality monitors are required for visualization and visualization purposes.
Perfect, thank you. So we want to have a nice SSD, solid state drive, because they are nice and quick. You want to have as much RAM as you can possibly get. You also need a high-end video card or a graphics card. You might hear it being said. And high-end graphics cards will have its own memory, its own processors, and it will also have display adapters that you'll be able to use to connect to those high-quality monitors. All right, audio editing workstation. Samar, would you mind reading this slide for me?
Yes, audio editing workstations requirements are very similar to graphic workstation, plus a high quality audio interface and powerful speakers. An audio interface provides multiple input/output audio connectors for microphone, speakers, and other instruments.
Perfect, thank you so much. So we're gonna need lots of connectors for those audio interfaces. You're probably going to have to, well, you definitely would get a high quality like sound card that you would be able to add to your system, but you're going to want similar things such as RAM, SSD, less on the video card side, but all the other things for sure. Great. And then we have our video editing workstation. Cynthia, would you mind reading this slide for me?
Okay, the video editing workstation. Video editing workstations combine the requirements for audio and graphic workstations. Video editing requires a very powerful CPU paired with as much RAM as possible, since it is a far more intensive process than graphics and audio editing. Also, some video editing workstations have multiple hard drives set up in RAID for added storage capacity and enhanced read and write speed. A second monitor is recommended for a better use of editing software.
Perfect. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
So same as the previous two, you're going to want to have nice graphics card, lots of RAM, very powerful CPU. This is where RAID can come into play for a personal use. where you have multiple hard drives because you're working with a lot of different video clips, sound clips, a lot of different things that are spread out throughout different drives. And so having a nice RAID setup can make it a lot more efficient. And also, second monitors are, I recommend for any type of workstation personally. It's very helpful, but especially if they're working with lots of different programs all at once, having multiple monitors is very helpful. All right. Home server PC. Steven, this one's yours.
Home server PC. As more computing devices move into the home environment, there is more need for a centralized PC to provide multiple services to all members of the house. Home server PC mainly supplies three functions: media streaming, streaming video to other computers in the house. The benefits are centralized storage of the content and reduced duplication of the content on other PCs. File sharing, to keep all shared folders in the same location. It saves space and facilitates the creation of backups. Print sharing, to have a centralized control of printing. Printer permission can be used to control who does what to the printers, as well as whose print jobs get priority in a crunch.
Awesome, thank you. So 3 main things: media streaming, you want to be able to connect to all the computers would be able to connect to this central device to be able to access photos, movies, music, all from the central location. File sharing, want to be able to share files between the different computers within the house. And then print sharing, so that way everybody can print, from one central location. Now let's talk about the requirements. Let's see. Leela, would you mind reading this slide?
The requirements on software are not complicated since any modern operating system is able to share files and print services. Hardware needs apply primarily to the network speed and hard drive capacity and redundancy. If the home server is very active, then CPU and RAM are also important. Since all services are provided through the network, a gigabyte Ethernet NIC should be used to avoid bottlenecks. If data redundancy is critical, 2 or more identical hard drives should be installed in a RAID configuration.
Perfect, thank you. So we need solid CPU, lots of RAM, a nice gigabit Ethernet network card, and if you have things like baby pictures, wedding photos, things that are super important, you're going to want to have some redundancy. And having a RAID configuration is helpful. Also, helping them get a cloud service or cloud storage set up too would probably be useful for them, but that's not a part of this session, so I'm not going to dig into that just yet. All right, Candido, tell us about home theater PCs.
Home theater PC, HTPC. A home theater system enables to play music and watch movies and television. An optimal home theater has 5 components: a monitor, TV or projector, surround sound speakers, a stereo receiver, home theater PC, and network connectivity. The requirements for the HTPC are a video card with support for large monitors at high resolution, example HDMI connector, fast seat NIC, gigabit preferred, sound card that supports 5.1 or 7.1 stereo and DVD drive.
Perfect, thank you.
You got it.
So you guys should notice that all of these different computers, it makes sense, the components that you're putting in it, right? A home theater, you're gonna want a nice TV, a projector, you know, large monitor. It's being used as a home theater. You want it to sound nice, so you're gonna want nice speakers. If you want TV, you're gonna need a receiver. Good network connectivity, especially if you're streaming movies with how big that is today, Netflix, HBO Max, the list goes on. So having a good network card is very key for that. All right. Now the gaming PC. Let's see, Lorraine, would you mind reading this one for me?
While casual gamers can get by with the thick client, those who take their gaming seriously want a powerful PC ready for every game. Requirements of essential features for gaming PC are fast multi-core processor, a lot of RAM memory, high-end video card, high definition sound, cooling capacity.
Perfect, thank you, Lorraine. So gaming PC, you're basically buffing up everything you can, but if budget is a limitation, you want to make sure that you have a really good high-end video card, high definition sound, kinda. I'm not a fan of that suggestion because I use headphones and the sound quality is going to be different because it's not coming through my sound card, it's coming through my speakers. So that would depend on the client. RAM is good. You need to have very high cooling capacity because it will get very hot due to more graphic intensive games. You want a nice processor. And this is the inside of a potential gaming PC. You might have noticed that all of the wires are black and it has a liquid cooling system. So up here is a radiator and these hoses go attached to this little square that sits on top of the CPU. And so cold water, well, a cold liquid is being run through these hoses and the hot water goes out the other side up to the radiator where it's then cooled off by fans and then back through the hose. It seems a little complicated the first time you take a look at it, but it's really easy to set up. All the cables are black. You would typically have to purchase specific cabling to have it all be one color. And it's got 2 RAM modules, fans. Yeah. Here's some examples of PCs. I don't know why we have an ad for gaming PCs, but we do. So I'm going to move through that. This is a graphics card for those of you that haven't seen one. They stick in with the PCIe connection. This one appears to be HDMI and maybe DisplayPort, kind of hard to see. Same with these, and it looks like a DVI port of some sort. All right, this is the picture you want to take. If you take nothing else from this presentation, take a picture of this slide. This entire presentation could just be this slide. In fact, it kind of is just this slide. Please take a picture of this slide. Yes, Raekwon.
I had to get going so I could go to my dentist appointment.
You're good. Thanks for
Okay.
letting us know.
Yeah, no problem. See you guys tomorrow. Take care. Everybody.
Sounds good. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Make it your screensaver so you can look at it. That's not a terrible idea. Set it to your little screensaver on your phone. You get bored, need to study real quick, boom. What are the requirements for a graphics CAD machine? Needs video card, RAM, storage, audio, means video, storage, audio. And there's extra notes on the side. Something you will notice with the gaming one, I know I said you want to max out as much as you can, but typically you're held back by a budget. So it's saying RAM is not necessary. The reason it says that,
Also souped up processor.
or also a souped up processor, is because a graphics card has its own processor and its own RAM already in it. So that will take some of the load off of your personal RAM and the main CPU. Dict client, thin client, come as is. So you don't need to worry about that. That's it. This is the slide you need. Everything else, just additional information. All right. Optional supplemental content. Let's see, DW, will you read this slide for me?
Optional supplemental content, network attached storage or NAS. If you want to make your files available on the network to all connected devices, a NAS is much like a mini server, contains CPU and RAM, except that they don't have a full operating system, are inexpensive, and are easy to configure through an interface. Since all services are provided through a network, a gigabit Ethernet NIC card should be used to avoid bottlenecks. NAS mainly supplies two functions: media streaming, the ability to stream video to other computers on the network. The benefits are centralized storage of the content and reduced duplication of the content on the other PCs. File sharing, to keep all shared folders in the same location. It saves space and facilitates the creations of backups.
Perfect. Thank you, DW. So this is just additional content. If you wanted to know about network attached storage, it's essentially just a mini server to help facilitate file sharing and media streaming. And objectives revisited. So now we should all be able to describe different custom configurations to meet common client needs, describe the features and characteristics of different custom configured workstations, and given a scenario, select the appropriate components for a custom PC configuration to meet customer specifics or needs. So big takeaway from this session, communicate what your client is asking of you and build the machine that they're requesting. Stop share.